Good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, the Global Education and Training Institute from Lucknow. And you are right now on our disruptive education platform. The Global Education and Training Institute is the premier institute in India for training principals and teachers. And to find out more about our in-service and pre-service programs, please contact 740-840-1000. The Disruptive Education Platform has enabled us to interact with more than 1,100 teachers and educators from India and all over the world. And this evening, we have for you Mr. Shashidhar Kulkarni. He is the principal of the Basaveshwara International Public School in Mudhol in Karnataka. He is born in a family musicians have been nurtured for generations. He chose teaching as his passion. He has an MA in chemistry, but has also taught physics, English, and the tabla. He founded scholarradio.com, which is a web radio dedicated for teachers and students. He believes in demonstrational motivation and instructional leadership. He has attended many workshops and youth festivals, and he is a multi-talented teacher and person. He plays the tabla and has won a state level award in 2006. He also plays the sarod. He likes building electronic circuits. He enjoys and puts up dramas and plays. He's fond of reading, writing articles, and drawing. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us. And over to you, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm very thankful to Mr. Pradeep Mall, sir, for giving such a sweet introduction about me. And at the same time, I would like to thank him for inviting me here to render this talk. Fine, let me start my speech now, my webinar now on enhancement of speaking and listening activities. Fine, let us.
Excuse me, your signals. Sir, excuse me, your signals are weak, a little weak. So your voice is being cut off. Please try and do something about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Fine. Speaking and listening skill enhancement activities, a modern approach. Before knowing the activities meant for improving the speaking and listening skills, let us do a small Q&A session to know the motivation behind the concept. Because speaking and listening activities, these are not very new. Something what I'm speaking now is about a old wine in a new bottle. Therefore, let us see what is the scenario now, why it is in demand now. So you need to answer me just in yes or no. Often, I need to tell my students to listen properly, listen carefully. Am I right? Do you think so? Another issue, there is a great need of revision in any classroom, though rendition of lesson was up to the mark. Often students crave for a revision before the examination or after the end of the lesson. So why it is so? Then it appears that they forget my instructions. For example, in an examination hall, when you ask the students to fill the basic details properly, at the end, you can see that at least few students have not obeyed those instructions properly, or they just got confused, or it appears that they forgot the instructions that you gave. Is it so? Have you come across such situations? He or she, I mean to say a student, is good in reading and writing, but lacks in oral presentations. When you ask them to come on the stage and speak few words about their learning outcome, they hesitate. But on a paper, their performance is very good. Then it appears that my students are unable to concentrate. Often parents say that my child is unable to concentrate on the studies. Some students say that I am unable to focus, I am unable to concentrate, and I can't actually understand what the teacher is explaining in the class. So all these five problems, most probably you might have come across, and your answers will be yes, I think, for all the five problems. Now let us analyze one by one. Communication problem number 1. Why there is a need of the frequently used statement, listen properly or listen carefully, did you understand, etc. and etc. So the possibilities are only two. If you brainstorm, you will get these answers only. Either the speaker is failing to reach the listener, first thing, or the listener is unable to focus. Apart from these two reasons, I think there cannot be any other reason, except some exceptionals are like if noise is there, or if the child's health, the student's health is not good, that such exceptional things, let us keep them aside. Naturally, the reasons are either the speaker is failing or the listener is unable to focus. Then communication problem number 2, why the listener is unable to recall my instructions. Again, here either the speaker is failing to reach the listener or the listener is unable to focus. Here pace also matters. If the speaker is very fast, the student may not be able to understand the sequence of the instructions or the meaning of the instructions properly, and thus the student may fail to give you the desired result. Then communication problem number 4, why the students or teachers find difficulties only in oral presentations, though they are very good in their written presentations. So they may be lacking in linguistic skills. The linguistic skills of the speaker are poor, or the content mastery is poor. Here we should not forget one more parameter. It is fluency and content relation. Let me give an example here. Since I am a chemistry lecturer, I can explain about a chemical reaction very fluently because my fluency and content are properly related now. Whereas if you ask me to speak about law and order or some concept in political science, law, I cannot explain because I do not have content mastery there. Thus, I will definitely lack in the fluency. Every subject has its own terminologies, vocabulary, and those word collection help the speaker to have some fluency. Thus, again, the speaking and listening skills are dependent on linguistic skills as well as on fluency and content relation. Now, and problem number 5, why there is a need of revision at the end of the teaching or learning sessions. Most of the students demand for a revision at the end of the lesson, whereas when we ask them to ask the doubts, or when we give them some time to clarify their doubts, they usually say that they don't have any doubts. They have understood everything. But before the examination, there is a need of revision. Why it is so? Here, the reasons are either the speaker is failing to reach the listener or the listener is unable to focus. And here again, content mastery is very important. Apart from content mastery, the listener's ability to focus when the speaker is speaking and the speaker's ability to cater the attention of the listener, both are very important. Then the last one is why many students think that they are unable to focus on the explanations or lectures in the classrooms. Reasons are Either speaker is failing to attract the listener, or the listener is not trained to listen properly. However, we cannot make all the students oral learners. What do you mean by oral learners? The students who have an ability just to learn by listening something. But there are different types of learners too, like visual learners. After seeing an animation or a picture, they will definitely understand the concept. There are read and write learners. They learn the concepts after solving a worksheet or some problems or some practicing some questions and answers like this. And there are some type of learners, they are called kinesthetic learners. They learn the concept after doing a project work or conducting an experiment or after completion of a lab activity, they will be able to understand or reproduce the concept. So now all learners cannot be turned into oral learners, but there is some basic requirement that the students must be able to listen and they must be able to inculcate the same in the practice. So when we see these 5 problems, we can find that the ability of the speaker and the ability of the listener both matter a lot. Thus, there is a need to conduct some activities in any classroom to improve the speaking skills and listening skills of a student. So already some efforts are being done. It is not very new. There are some efforts being done. For example, CBSE has already introduced ASL, Assessment of Speaking and Listening, for classes 9 to 12 just. Not for all the classes, only for classes 9 to 12, they have introduced ASL. Unfortunately, it is an assessment only. There are no activities prior to the assessment to improvise it. And even some schools and colleges have incorporated some language laboratories, but the activities are restricted only to learn the languages. So this laboratory has no role in learning other subjects. So these are the efforts, very simple, few efforts which are done now to improve the speaking and listening skills. So what is the lacuna in the current system? The very first one is students studying in the lower grades are not exposed to the activities to overcome the difficulties that they are having in speaking and listening skills. Emphasis is given only for pen paper tests, notes, and other form of written documents. So we are mostly trying to convert all the students bookish, right? And teachers are not equipped with skills specifically required for such activities. They need some skill sets to conduct such activities, whereas they are now lacking in such skills. Then through the speaking and listening activities, what one can expect? Let us see first. Let us know the reality. Among the students, when do you conduct the speaking and listening activities, they become more oriented in learning. Thus, listen carefully and listen properly. Did you understand? These questions won't be there because the students are now self-motivated. After listening to your lecture, definitely they'll stop you if they have doubts and they'll ask you some questions. And because of this, among the teachers, as an impact of speaking and listening activities in a classroom, they feel teaching very hassle-free. Because now they have a very clear feedback whether the students are understanding or not. Then revision sessions turn into doubt clearing sessions. I need not revise a chapter which I have done almost for a week or 10 days. After doing that, just before the examinations, students won't come with a complaint that, sir, I have not understood, ma'am, I have not understood, can you please revise the entire lesson. Such problems may not arise if you are emphasizing on speaking and listening activities. Apart from that, the teacher feels confident to reach higher goals since the time limit that is required for revising a lesson is now minimized and the same time can be now utilized for doubt clearing. Now the teacher can focus on solving more examples or explaining or doing some other activities, and thus teacher can now reach higher goals. Then instructions turn into interactions in a classroom with speaking and listening activities, instructions turn into interactions, because the students now, since they are listening properly, they have certain doubts and they have certain add-ons to your explanation. And there shall be no more feeling that teachers' efforts are one-sided, and from the receiver's end there is no response at all. Such problems get solved. Then teaching and learning sessions become student oriented, because here students are given more platform to speak out. And by this, diagnosis and assessments become more informative now. Instead of just saying that out of so and so mark, the child has scored only this much. If we are able to say that the student has now understood, has grasped all the knowledge part, and he is able to now comprehend, but only the problem is he is lacking in evaluations and synthesis. Now we can give more information on the student's progress. Teacher gets leads for better remediation by this. So now the teacher can design a better remedial class, and after that he will be able to see better output from the class. Now the last one very important that I think is worries about concentration inability will vanish. Now the students won't complain that they are unable to concentrate or focus. And as a result, classroom management shall become very easy, because all the students are serious, are focused towards learning, and they are enjoying the learning sessions. Okay, so these are the expected outputs of a classroom where there are enough number of speaking and listening activities. So what activities I advise? See, this is a presentation purely based on my own reading and my own research. So some of the activities that I am advising may not definitely suit you, but here are some suggestions. You can even add or delete or modify according to your needs of the class. See, for languages and for core subjects, we cannot have the same set of speaking and listening skills. However, there can be some activities which can be very common for both. Now, let us see one by one. Storytelling, story narration, or listening to a story. It's a wonderful activity to enhance the speaking and listening activities. Assume that for a span of 1 week, you are going to tell or narrate a same story, a simple and same story for a span of on his own. The student will be able to tell the story on his own. So thus speaking and listening both are taken care now. The next one is biography based question and answers. Make a audio clip of a biography of a person, play it in the classroom. After that, ask a few questions to the students and let them answer. So here, since they want to answer at the end of the activity, they will definitely listen carefully. And this is now a training for them to listen properly. Instead of asking them to listen properly, we are now training them how to listen properly. A pick and speak about a personality. Let us say that you have given some biographies to the students, and all of them have gone through them. And now, after a week or after a given time span, if you give a pick and speak activity, the student will be happily able to find one chit and identify the personality about which he or she is supposed to explain, and whatever he has passages. What do you mean by unheard passages? You might have heard about unseen passages in English question papers. The same thing, unseen passages are now converted into audio clips, and they are followed by a worksheet. The student will listen to the passage in the form of an audio clip. After that, he or she should solve a worksheet. And a simpler version of this activity is read loudly. When you read loudly, the students listen. After that, they solve the question answers. Fine. And the next one is audio books or audio lessons. So they are nowadays available over internet, or you can make your own audiobooks or audio lessons, and they become very good examples, especially for those students who are unable to read and who are unable to focus. The students can be made to listen to them, or else you can identify some students in the classroom who are good readers, and when they read, you record the voice and then play the same thing for other students. So thus it become a very good tool to train other students to read properly. Then the next one is summarizing an audio clip. Let us assume that the students listen to an audio clipping about an event, or about an incident which happened in past, and after that if you ask them to summarize about it, their listening skill helps them to summarize it, and this helps them in turn to develop a proper listening skill. Then the next one is audio dramas, especially in language teaching. Let us take an example, like if you are teaching in Hindi, an upanyas by Munshi Premchand. Instead of spending enough time only on boring lectures, if you make the student to listen to a drama, then definitely they understand all the characters and their natures, and even they will definitely inculcate it in their imagination. And if any audio clipping is not available, you can take few students and train them for certain characters, and after a proper rehearsal they can only make an audio drama. Just by recording it, that can become an asset for you for many coming academic years. Then there are some very simple activities for lower classes, like correct the sentence, identify the error in the sentence, helping verb is missing, or else uh, the sentence is lacking in punctuation, etc. Change the speech of the sentence while teaching direct and indirect speech. Reported speech, while teaching reported speech, you can use this activity very nicely. Instead of making it only a pen paper activity, just tell the student a sentence and ask him to change the speech of that or voice of that, or ask him to change the tense of that sentence, or ask him to identify the error in that sentence. Thus the student will be with you throughout the class, right? And he will not lose himself somewhere. Fine. Then these are certain activities for languages. Now let us see some activities for core subjects. Audiobooks and lessons, as I told, for languages can be used even for core subjects. Then worksheet based on an audio clip, and you can make certain audio clips and you can even attach it with a worksheet. For example, about an experiment, when an audio clip about the procedure of the experiment is played for the children, later on they can solve some multiple choice questions based on that audio clipping. And word problems in the form of audio clips. Instead of only relying on the bookish problems, you can ask some general problems. I mean, you can just instead of audio clips, you can ask them verbally, or just you can play an audio clip. After listening to the clip, the student now should mentally calculate the or mentally try to solve that problem, and he will come up with a problem, with a solution, and that that actually gives very wonderful results. Then audio lab manual. It's a wonderful activity for physics and chemistry and even for biology subjects, where the student is now given with the aim of the experiment and materials required and what is the procedure and the hints or tips to set up the laboratory apparatus and hints to measure the things. All these things are given in the form of an audio clipping, or else the teacher must explain it verbally. And when the students come up with the outcome of the experiment, definitely we'll see very better results. Because I've seen in many live examples that students won't be later able to spell that word properly or pronounce that word properly, even though they have conducted a lab activity on the same concept. So you can avoid such things, and you can even see that the students are now more focused and are able to listen and then carry out the experiment. Then draw as instructed. For mathematics and for biology, this activities give him step by step instructions, and he will listen and he will then do it. So these are actually intentionally framed activities where we are doing two things. One is the concept, the other one is the listening and speaking abilities are of the student are being improvised. Then give reasons. Certain phenomena in subject science or even in political science, social science, where the student must be able to give the reasons, right? Here it is a two-way activity. You are explaining a phenomena, the student is giving the reason. Fine. So this is a very good verbal oral activity. Then identify the error in the procedure and justify. For example, a recipe or some
Good evening, everyone. We're extremely sorry, though we were able to hear the bulk of what Mr. Shashidhar had to say. He's having problems with his Wi-Fi, and my extreme apologies. But we'll conclude it over here. So, good evening, everybody, and I request you to watch our detox from our disruptive literacy movement by Global Dream, which has been there for since 2014, and this is to ensure that everyone in India participates in teaching all Indians to literacy and numeracy, something which is very, very important. And we have several talks on this, several interesting talks. So you can contact 740-840-1000, get more information and attend the talks that you would like to attend. So we thank our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And good evening, everybody. Goodbye, and see you again tomorrow. Thank you.